Right, we'll start. Good afternoon, all. This is the strategic planning meeting of Tuesday, the 18th of July. Couple of items, just the usual things. Under the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulations 2014, members of the public or those party to the meeting are permitted to film, broadcast and report on the meeting, subject to the efficient running of the meeting not being affected. Only those people who are registered in line with the committee's speaking procedure can address the committee. Members of the public are requested not to call out during the committee's discussion on any item. All speakers will have 5 minutes in which to make their statement. Participants addressing the planning committee will be advised when they have 60 seconds of the allotted time remaining and will be expected to cease talking immediately on being advised that their time is up. Speakers may be asked to remain seated after they address the committee to answer questions from the planning committee members. There are no planned fire drills, so the alarm, if the alarm I should say, does sound, evacuation instructions will be given by democratic officers, and the assembly point is at the bottom of the steps on the mount. Could electronic devices please be switched off or to silent mode? For those members using laptops, could I please ask that they press F1 on their machines and a blue light will come on indicating the sound is muted. This meeting will be webcast on the Council's corporate YouTube channel. Therefore, when speaking, please use the microphones. Thank you. Moving on to the agenda. We've got apologies for absence and appointment of substitute members, please.
Certainly, Chair. We have apologies of the absence from Councillor Manners with the substitute of Councillor Stephen Clark. Apologies from Councillor Humphreys with the substitute of Councillor Jonathan Harris, and apologies from Councillor Addison, Gonzalez de Savage and James.
Thank you. Members, any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. Minutes. To confirm the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 20th of June 2023. I think the Democratic officers just got some amendments there.
We have 3 amendments. Councillor Parker was omitted from the list of attendees and needs to be included. Councillor Bignell should not have been included in the list of apologies. And the decision for the application WND 2023-0155 Farthingstone Hotel and Golf Course should have read, prior to the commencement of works affecting any existing public right-of-way, full details of any enhancement, improvement, signage, diversion or closure shall be submitted for the approval of the local planning authority to ensure that the public rights-of-way remain accessible and safe for users throughout and on completion of development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So with those amendments, are the committee happy that I sign the minutes? Agreed. Thank you. Right, there's no chair's announcement, so we'll move straight to planning application WND 2022/0410. So I'd ask the officer, Erica, to proceed, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the change of use of agricultural land to solar farm and the construction operation of a solar photovoltaic development with a capacity of up to 49.9 megawatts with associated infrastructure and planting. This is the site location plan with the application site all around there. This is the layout of how it's proposed for the solar farm, solar panels. And this is the master plan, gives you a bit more detail. This is the elevations of the solar farm. The solar panels and structures are on an aluminium frames with maximum of 3 meters high, and there's 3 meter separation for each linear array. There are several other structures within the site. And this is the MV power station. Oops. Then there was the customer and DNO substation. And this is the security fencing, which is a 2.2 meter high timber post and stock-proof mesh fencing. And it has been confirmed that the fencing will include what is known as badger gates to enable small animals to move through the site. Deer fencing has wide wire fencing, which will allow even smaller animals to move through. Access routes to the site and the junction for Brington Road access. The existing access is to be improved, Brington Road, and would be gated following completion and only be used in emergency. The junction design, which is that one, the junction design for the main road, Upper Hayford, which is going to be the main access into the site, and the new site access is to be constructed off the main road, which is just before the bridge, which goes over the M1. So instead of going up the small roads next to the, sorry. Okay, thank you. Instead of going down the, by the side where the houses are, they will actually go along this section here. And it's for construction traffic only. Once construction is finished, this access will also be gated off. This is the landscape mitigation plan. Will be in biodiversity net gain of 36% for habitats and 11% for hedgerows. In terms of viewpoints, from the last committee, they were asked for viewpoints of the actual scheme. So this is the various viewpoints on each of the plan, the following slides. This is the view from Roman Way down towards the site along the Macmillan Way with a baseline and year 1. And this is year 10. As you can see, there's very little that will be seen due to the intervening roads and hedgerows and trees. This is viewpoint 2, which is the Macmillan Way and Midshire Way junction. Again, the site is hidden from views with hedgerows and trees. This is the Midshires north of the site. The closest view of the site, which is shown here, this is the area, is for illustration only, because to show you the extent of the solar farm, but this will be mitigated with the hedges and the trees that are part of the landscaping scheme. This is the view from the footpath north side of the Glassthorpe Hill, the baseline, which is currently is, and year 1, which shows you the solars, the panels just down here. And then this is year 10 for the same area, again, with the tree growth, little will be shown. This is from the viewpoint north side of Glass Hill, with the baseline and year 1, which shows you the solar panels there. And this is year 10. Again, this would be the clearest view of them, but there is quite a distance between it. This is the viewpoint from the south side of Glassthorpe Hill with the baseline and year 1, again shows the imagery of the extent of the farm, but obviously this will also be mitigated with the hedgerows and the trees as part of the landscaping. This is year 10. This is Midshires Way, which was the area of the site visit when we were walking up the hill. This is the view of the site from Upper Hayward, where the solar farm is not visible due to the intervening trees and hedges. The view from the canal, again, the solar farm is not visible due to the intervening hedges. And this is the view from Floor, again, not visible due to the intervening hedges and trees. This is the view from the public right of way near Floor with the baseline and year 1. And this is, you can see there, and this is where the M1 is along there, which you can see the backdrop of the M1. This is the view from Macmillan Way, Brington Road. Again, would be seen there, but this would also be mitigated with the hedges and trees. And this area here is also down for meadow grassland as well. So there's got the additional bonus there. And this is Macmillan Way, the baseline in year 1. Again, the solar farms panels not visible from this direction. And year 10, again, not visible due to the intervening hedges and trees. This is Brington, it's Macmillan Way. Macmillan Way. This one is the Roman, again, the top end of Roman Road, where the solar panels are not visible due to the existing hedges and trees. And here's some photos. This is the first field from the existing unmade access road, again near where we met for the site visit. And this is the unmade access road where we started to walk the Macmillan Way, Midshires Way. This is where the agricultural buildings are, halfway up Midshires Way, which are to be retained. This is Glarsthorpe Hill. This is the Midshire Way Macmillan Junction footpath. And this is the view from Brington Road across the field, with the Macmillan Way access into Brington Road. And that's the completion of the.
Thank you. You want to say anything, James?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So just to sort of assist members in considering this application, members have been on site recently, so hopefully it was clear through the site visit that the well-established existing hedgerows combined with proposed landscaping will mean that a lot of the views one might perceive would exist of the solar farm will in fact not occur because of the existing and proposed landscaping. Therefore, the landscape visual impact is not as great as one might think with respect to this particular solar farm proposal. And then when members are considering the planning balance, I'd just like to draw attention, and it is referenced in the report, that there is strong national support for renewable energy, and paragraph 158 of the National Planning Policy Framework actually says when determining planning applications for renewable and low carbon development, local planning authorities should not require applicants to demonstrate the overall need for renewable or low carbon energy, and recognise that even small scale projects provide a valuable contribution to cutting greenhouse gas emissions. And obviously this is not a small scale, it's quite a large scale proposal. And then in terms of biodiversity net gain, councillors I think are aware that from November 2023, the Environment Act introduces an automatic requirement for a biodiversity net gain of 10%. This application is in some ways ahead of that, in that the applicant has done a detailed biodiversity net gain calculation, and they're providing 36% in habitat units and 11% in hedgerow unit gain. So for clarity, that's actually a 47% net gain because you add the figures together. So the difference between this planning report and the one you had at the last planning committee meeting, there's only one change. We've added condition 16. That's to do with biodiversity net gain, and criteria C is, in my mind, is the key criteria in that, because it requires the applicant to deliver a minimum of those 36% in habitat units and 11% in hedgerow units. It's actually set out in the planning condition that is a minimum requirement. So again, that weighs in favour in the planning balance when you determine this application. And then just as a final point, Chairman, sorry, two final points. We unfortunately omitted to include a recently received CPRE objection in the final report, and that is summarise that objection in your committee update. But I'd actually like to make one verbal update, if I may, and apologies for doing a verbal update. And this relates to the badger gates you heard reference to. So condition 17 is the landscaping condition. I'd like to do two changes, if I may, to that condition. That the first line to reference hard and soft landscaping. This is just a simple change that we just want to ensure we have all the landscaping details as part of that condition discharge. But then I want to add an extra line. The landscape mitigation strategy should also include the details of the badger gates within the deer fencing. So it's just so that we as officers have the full details of those badger gates. And in case anybody's wondering what a badger gate is, it's a kind of, easiest way I can explain this is a bit like a cat flap for badgers, but it enables small animals to come and go and is specifically designed just to enable small animals to come and go. It's a metal thing, but it's a quite sort of complex design, but it clearly people have thought about these, and they do actually exist. There is such thing as a badger gate that is specifically designed to allow small animals to come and go. But nonetheless, your officers would like us to receive the final details of that, hence the change to condition 17. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, any questions of the officer who presented the report?
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Pritchard, sorry.
Yes. Just something that has cropped up in the past with regards to the electricity that's generated from these solar farms. Is the local, or not so much local, the national infrastructure able to accept the amount of electricity that this will be generated? In the past, Western Power have had problems in actually accepting this sort of capacity from solar farms and wind farms.
Yes, Councillor, I can. The EDF, the applicants have received a grid connection offer. Sorry.
So we've actually got some notes that so we can directly answer that question. So EDF, the energy company, have received a grid connection offer through the West Northampton substation. And basically this guarantees a grid connection point for a period of time. So in plain English, this applicant does have a secure grid connection. So which gives some assurance on the potential deliverability of the proposal should planning consent be granted. So I guess the comfort we can give is that we have had confirmation that the applicant has had those discussions, and hence They wouldn't be telling us they have a grid connection offer if they hadn't had those details discussions with the National Grid.
Councillor Herring?
I noticed when you were showing the access road, which was the one that we walked up, and then the revised access road further up that will then be sealed off. That creates a sort of a plot of land, and I just wondered whether we know what that, who's going to look after it. That's right up against housing, so I just wanted to know whether it's going to be managed, looked after, have solar panels on it or whatever. It just creates that corner of land.
This bit here. There's no plans to have any solar panels on that land. If you, well, let me just go back. Because it's here and all the solar panels are on this bit of land here. So there's no panels going on that bit of land. They need to leave that access in place because they'll need it for decommissioning. And the existing access will remain. And once the construction has finished, this area here will be gated off and it will be reverting back to that single lane that we went up to the bridge. It's only effectively taking it from the main road into just before the bridge starts. So instead of going up that single lane, it enables the construction traffic to go there.
I just thought that it should actually, we should ensure that it is under some sort of management or hived off as a paddock or something, because it is so near to the other houses. You don't want it to be just an overgrown mess that becomes a dumping ground because it's just by the lane.
I think that might be a question for the agent. It might make it easier. And any technical questions should really go to the agent as well, because they'll have more knowledge than the officers will on technical
Fine,
things.
I'm sure they're listening. I'll ask it again. Thank you.
I'm sure they are. Councillor Stowe.
Thank you. Did we ever get an answer to the question about why 40 years? And forgive me because I'm a bit ignorant. What happens to the land underneath the solar panels? I don't understand what happens to it. That way. And my other question was, does anybody know what the net loss in terms of agriculture is? What are we losing? I can see what we're gaining, but I can't see what we're losing.
Do you want to take those one at a time? Harry?
Yeah. Right, the 40 years is the industry standard that's needed. So it is an operational period. I know with solar farms, it used to be 35. It's now, because of the advancement in technology, that they're now seeking 40 years, which is why it's 40 years. I think the query last time was 27, but 27 is tends to be for the wind turbines rather than the solar panels. In terms of agricultural use, there will be sheep grazing on the land, so it still remains in agricultural use. It's mainly low grade for farm. The site is currently mainly used for pasture, with one arable field included within the site boundary. And there's approximately a quarter of the site is considered to be grade 3B, which is one of the better. The rest of the site is the lower grade. So it's, I think that's, yeah. Yeah, so it's not a significant amount of BMV land. So that's that's where it is, but it is still going to be used for agricultural use.
That's useful to know, thank you. But I am ignorant, so forgive the question, but what does happen underneath the panels in terms of the earth?
It just grows as
Just grows
grass.
grass?
The sheep come on.
Oh, right, and eat
and
it.
it's- Yeah.
Fine.
They just graze the grass. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Just some observations really, numbers around biodiversity and also in regards to the wildlife access or badger gates or whatever label we give to it. I think it's important, and again, welcome officers adding that into the conditions to make sure that that's included. As always with conditions, they're only as good as the enforcement. So, you know, that is just a point to make out there that I hope we have some means of ensuring that these things are delivered on. But I'm grateful that they're included into the conditions. I just want to acknowledge some of the comments made and the concerns raised by CPRE. I think the particular point they make about solar panels in terms of warehouses and sheds, it's an issue that this committee has raised on many occasions. So I do disagree with their point that I do think in this instance we are actually getting more benefit. But I think we should acknowledge the point that they make that I hope we take more note of ensuring that we utilise all spaces for this, particularly if it is shed use. We have the policies as far as I'm concerned to do that. So I just wanted to acknowledge it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, in that case, we'll move now to the speakers. And the first speaker is Mr. Skirtrell, please. If you'd like to come to this desk here, sir. You'll just need to move the microphone this close to, and you hit the button in the bottom. You've got 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Brian Skitterall from CPRE Northamptonshire. We were shocked when the officer's report summarised our 5-page objection simply as loss of agricultural land. We raised divergence from government policy. This is the only scheme in Northamptonshire within designated landscape, permanent impact on food production and misleading carbon savings statistics. It's important that enthusiasm to tackle climate change does not bounce us into making bad decisions driven by good intentions. Climate change is happening and global actions are currently inadequate to prevent significant change. This makes it vital to be able to adapt to climate change, which for the UK includes improving food security. Solar PV can be installed almost anywhere, so it's not necessary to install it on productive and sensitive sites. The recent UCL report for CPRE found that installing solar panels on new buildings, existing large warehouses and land such as car parks could provide at least 40 to 50 gigawatts of electricity, over half of the target to 2035. It also found potential for nearly 120 gigawatts by 2050. We're not short of potential site, so there is no excuse for targeting one of Northamptonshire's few protected landscapes. Government policy recommends siting large-scale solar projects on previously developed land and non-agricultural land. This site is poorly chosen because over half of it lies within the most protected landscape designation in our county. The council's own consultant found this did not meet policy and would cause significant harm. The Climate Change Committee repeatedly highlights the lack of food security as a significant risk for the UK, and the proposed NPPF changes seek to better protect agricultural land. When dismissing the Blackberry Lane appeal, the inspector found that the construction, operation and decommissioning of a solar farm would irreversibly degrade the soil, effectively finding that even though the permission is temporary. The loss of food production is permanent. Managing cheek in a complex structure of struts and supports is not realistic, and we have never seen a site where this is actually happens. It's promised, but it never happens. Regardless, the Blackberry Lane inspector also found that the food value of that site would be substantially reduced, even with grazing and silage production. There are benefits of the schemes, but Homes Supplied exaggerates them by an order of magnitude. Domestic electricity accounts for around 10% of the carbon emissions of its residents. So this solar farm can be thought to offset 800 to 1,000 homes, roughly 4 homes per acre. The officer's report lists numerous harms as a result of the scheme, but then concludes that reducing carbon emissions outweighs all those harms. We feel this is a non sequitur and that the benefits of the scheme are insufficient to justify the harms that it would produce on this site. We also consider that the permanent loss of food production also weighs heavily against the scheme. CPRE Northamptonshire has always taken the approach of trying to direct necessary development to the right places. In our view, this is one of the most harmful solar PV schemes that we have seen, and this is not the right place. We recommend that it should be refused.
Thank you. If you just wait there a second. Members, does anyone wish to ask Mr. Kirtle any questions? No? Councillor Stone?
Could I ask you the question I asked the panel, which was about what the net loss in terms of agriculture is, if it can be quantified?
It's very difficult to quantify without going back to the farmer to find out how much grain he produces or could produce. The site is grade 3A, which is best and most versatile, and grade 3B, which is ideal cereal country. So it certainly could be producing a significant amount of grain. The Blackberry Lane inspector made that balance on his side, that the loss, there was a significant loss of production or potential production.
Thank you. And Councillor Harris?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to acknowledge some of the comments that you've made, and I think this is one of those difficult areas in terms of the balance to be had and to be struck. I guess from my perspective, I'm leaning towards feeling that this is likely to be more beneficial than not, but I really do want to acknowledge the points that you make and acknowledge the work that you do in the CPRE, because I know you've been running a very active campaign about the siting and location of solar panels, and I would completely agree with you that there are plenty of other opportunities and sites that should be compulsory rather than optional. So I acknowledge the comments that you make, and thank you for coming and speaking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nobody else? No, thank you, sir. If you'd like to take your seat. Thank you. Mr. Thomason, please come forward. Thank you. You've got 5 minutes, sir.
I'll do my best. Right. Yeah, I'm representing sit down. Flor Parish Council. I attended the previous meeting where it was decided to defer the application for a site visit, which I was very pleased about, because this project will have a serious impact on our parish and deserves full consideration. So I would like to say thank you to the council for coming out and making the effort to do the inspection and the visual inspection. Flor Parish Council voted in favour of this project by 1 vote majority, recognising the importance of renewable energy in our country but our decision was conditional as stated in our response. So these were the conditions. Firstly, we asked that the area covered should be reduced by removing or reducing the field off the Brinkton Road, that's the light green one, which is very good agricultural land as clearly identified in the ecology report. I have some experience of PV systems myself, and I know that solar panel efficiencies have increased almost monthly in recent years. And an increase in efficiency means you need less panels to get your 49 megawatts. And what we request is that if there's any reduction in the area required for the solar panels, that more of that field off the Brinkton Road is reduced. Okay, so that's our first request. Secondly, and this is our most important request, is that the field, the access to the site is not from the Brinkton Road, but from the new access at Upper Hayford. The Brinkton Road is a country road and it's only accessible from the Roman Road in the north or from Floor High Street. It's definitely not suitable for lorries coming down from the Roman Road. Indeed, it'd be quite dangerous. As a result, access from Floor, as regards the access from Floor High Street, the new bypass has resulted in about a 90% reduction of HGVs passing through the village, which we're very grateful for. But one of the problems is it's resulted in speeding. So in order to mitigate speeding, we've had a traffic calming put in place, which is 3 chicanes. That, however, has solved one problem and created another problem, because lorries that do still come trundling through the village and bang over the curbs of the chicane and make a noise, a bad noise. And in fact, one of the residents who lives adjacent to the chicane as it comes into the village has threatened legal action against the parish council or whoever he can take to court because of the noise. And so really having lorries coming in through Floor is a bad idea. And it is possible to gain access to that field by putting a bridge over the watercourse between the two sites. So if we have to use that field, then our request is that the access is from the new access at Upper Hayford and is over a bridge over the watercourse. That will have some ecological impact, but the ecological impact on the water voles will not be as great as it will on the residents in the village. So I would say, and I didn't realise that, you know, that new construction on Upper Hayford is retained as a new entrance instead of coming off the Brinkton Road. And thirdly, we'd like to request, and it's come through here, hasn't it, that the area is made as useful for agriculture as possible. There are things called agri-solar farms that are being developed in various parts of the world. There's an old farmer who lives in Floor, who's he's had millions offered for his land, and he's refused it all. He says the public do not appreciate the value of farmland. During the World War, we British farmers supplied the whole country with food as imports were stopped. And if we lose more farmland, we face the danger of being unable to feed ourselves in the event of another war. 3 more sentences. Can I finish? Okay. Can I just finish this sentence?
If you got one, just last sentence.
One sentence.
Just say the sentence, then, please.
Could West Northants Council and EDF take a lead to make this and future solar farms more eco-friendly?
Thank you. Members, any questions of the speaker? No. Thank you, sir.
Could I ask a question?
No.
Oh. Okay.
Nice try though, sir.
Okay.
Council. Mr. Smith, sorry. Got 5 minutes, sir.
Good afternoon to you all. I am a farmer who farms a small part of this ground, which hopefully will become a solar park. And I commend the scheme to this council. And I see it as being a win-win-win-win situation. And it will set a gold standard in terms of solar farm creation. Now you might say, why is it so many wins? Well, it's obviously a win for me. That's obvious. And it's a win for EDF to produce it and produce the electricity. It's a win for the government and their policy of energy mix. And it's a win for the environment in terms of producing a green energy. It's a win for the parish councils because they get long-term commitments to some of their community schemes that are going to be helped by EDF. But the biggest win here, and it's a very important win, because I've spent a lot of my life creating and improving the environment. I've planted 20,000 trees, created 2 new woods, dug 3 ponds, create bird feed plots, flower plots here, there, and everywhere. And I see this as going to be enhancing the work I've already done to a greater degree. So the biggest winner is the wildlife and the environment. Now, I farm a fair bit of the land. I know what farming is all about. And I can assure you that bit of land we're talking about might be considered to be certain standards, but it's not prime, it's not easy land to farm. There's about 10 different soil types. But having said that, you can farm it and it farms reasonably well. But in doing so, we apply copious amounts of fertilizer, a lot of pesticides, herbicides, and you name it, we stick it on it. And also we churn up the soil of the arable bits. So we disrupt the flora and fauna on those blocks. Now, in putting a solar farm there, we cut out all those chemistry. We cut out the chemistry. What has been found to happen is the insect life takes off, and everything above that insect life takes off as well, from small mammals all the way up to your predators, your owls and your kites, buzzards, you name it. It really benefits from this sort of scheme. Now, in terms of loss of agricultural production, I'd say, considering that this country chucks away 1/3 of what we produce as farmers, and they've got an obesity problem, it doesn't wash. It just doesn't wash. You're going to be much shorter of clean drinking water and also power and energy, electricity, than you are of food. And you're going to be short of electricity sooner than later. Yeah, to the point. Yeah, at the end, if it's deemed that we really do need extra food production within this country, that solar farm, which can be constructed within less than a year, can be taken up in less than a year. Now, the ground below that solar farm is actually allowed to restructure because it's not being cropped. It's not having chemicals applied to it. It restructures back and its soil structure is improved. So if it's deemed that we want food, that can be removed reasonably quickly, turned back to agricultural
1 minute
land,
remaining.
and will be better agricultural land than it was before. So I think in summary of the whole thing, what we have here is a chance of which we should be proud of as a county, is a chance to put in a solar farm, which is a gold standard for solar farms. Thank you very much. I commend it to you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Councillor Herring.
Win. How do you win as a farmer from this scheme?
How do I win?
Yeah.
Well, obviously I get paid quite a sizable annual rent from the solar production. And the margins on farming at the moment are extremely small. So it's much more beneficial to me to have a solar farm there than an arable farm. And in my mind, why I win-win is because A, I get an extra revenue above and beyond what I would have for farming, and B, I expand the amount of habitat improvement that I've been working on for years.
So it doesn't actually put your farm out of business. You've got more land to
No,
farm.
like most farmers, we have diversified. And I always put down the fact that actually I get 5% of my profits from farming and 95% of my profits come from diversified projects, which I put on the back of farming. 95% of my time is spent farming and 5% of my time is spent on the diversity. And that is pretty common among farmers.
Thank you. I don't think there's any more questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Darren Cumming, please. Got 5 minutes, sir.
Thanks, Chair, and other members of the committee and officers of the council. My name's Darren Cumming, and I'm here to speak on behalf of EDF Renewables, who are developing the Glassthorpe Solar Farm. I've been involved in the Glassthorpe Solar Project from its early stages and have helped formulate the application that is before you today. EDF Renewables is developing a number of renewable projects throughout the UK, including on and offshore wind farms, storage projects, hydrogen and solar farms such as Glassthorpe. As well as that, we are also putting solar panels on the roofs of industrial buildings, supermarkets, factories throughout the UK where it's possible to do that. Obviously, we're in a climate emergency at the moment, and there's not a day goes by where impact of CO2 emissions is not mentioned in the news. And the Glassthorpe project will provide enough clean, low carbon energy for over 10,000 West Northamptonshire homes. And we have chosen Glassthorpe very carefully in order to reduce the impacts of the solar farm on the environment and the local community who live near to the project. We have carried out a wide consultation exercise to ensure local people know about our scheme and have continued to engage to understand local concern. We've also worked closely with your officers and are pleased that the application has been recommended for approval. We have sought pre-application advice, screened and scoped the project to ensure we do everything that has been asked of us and to ensure that the application contains all the right information for you to make the right decision. We believe that Glassthorpe is an excellent site for a solar farm with limited impacts on the environment and the local community who live near the project. The site is separated from the villages of Flor and Upper Hayford by the motorway, and the benefits of existing screening from mature hedges, which was pointed out earlier, helps to integrate the project into the landscape. As has been pointed out by officers and clarified, we will deliver substantial landscape improvements to mitigate the impacts on the local area. The council's landscape officer has no objections to the scheme. And as has been mentioned, the project will deliver significant biodiversity net gain well above the required standard and will improve habitats for wildlife. And in relation to badger gates, we have incorporated those on our other projects that are under construction and coming into operation, so that they are a recognised way of allowing smaller mammals to utilise the solar farm site. We are an experienced developer and have constructed a number of renewable projects throughout the UK. We do care about what we do and how we do it. And we've worked with the highways officer here to confirm that the construction will not have an adverse impact on the highways network. and we will enter into the detailed construction management plan with the council, which we will stick to. As I say, we do care about our projects and the people who live near them, and we want to ensure we have an extremely good relationship throughout the operational life of the scheme. EDF Renewables will operate the solar farm for 40 years and will offer a community fund of £20,000 per annum throughout the life time of the project. We do have a grid connection at Northampton West Substation, which is contracted capacity and is available in 2025 for the project to start delivering low carbon and renewable energy to the grid network. We will go about building our scheme in a sensitive manner, which respects the local community and during the operational phase delivers the benefits that we say we will. And in relation to
1 minute remaining.
in relation to the planning conditions, that is something that's very important to us, and the conditions outlined in the report are acceptable to us, and we will ensure that those conditions are complied with and adhered to. Obviously, there are a number of questions, Chair, that I'm happy to take after this, but I'd just like to thank the committee for giving us time to talk about the project. And as I say, we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I think Councillor Herring, I think you might want to ask the first question.
Oh, thank you. I just, as I say, I was just a bit concerned about that, the creation of that orphan bit of land when the access road is the new access road is created. And whilst it's under farming management, people keep an eye on the land and care about the land. But because it's so near the road, my worry is if it becomes an overgrown bit of land, it'll start to be dumped on. So just wondered what your plans are for it, or whether you can negotiate with the local people to see whether it could have some community benefits, such as an allotment, a paddock, or anything else the community might like to use it as, rather than it just becoming a sort of degraded bit of land that could be used as a rubbish tip for passing vehicles, especially because it's so near the houses. That was my concern. And because you mentioned about you were putting solar on these warehouse roofs, because we have not, thank you. We've not been able to manage to move things, and we've been complaining about it as a planning committee for years. So I hope we keep on battling on and persuading the government that that's a much better idea. Thank you.
Thanks. Through you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Herring. In terms of that area of land, it is under our control, but we are happy to either plant that up with a similar wildflower mix that will go onto the solar farm. Alternatively, if the council so desires, we're happy to have an additional planning condition to control how that area of land is used, and we can agree that scheme with the council. But we'd certainly take the point that land will not be left in a bad state of repair, and it will be maintained over the life of the project. And in terms of the on roofs, yeah, it's something as a business that EDF are doing. We have relationships with a large number of industrial and commercial, and we on a number of Tesco stores that we have a number of panels on there, and it's a big part of our business that we see to reach net zero, not just through solar farms such as this, but also, as I say, on those commercial and industrial properties.
Sorry, Councillor Russell.
Thank you. I have two questions. One is, what hours will the construction traffic be trundling through the area? I can't imagine anything worse than having a HGV banging around outside my window or degrading the roads that I need to use while this construction is going on. And secondly, the heat wave that Europe is currently experiencing was unimaginable 5 years ago, possibly 10. how will the solar panels stand up to these huge increases in temperatures, which God forbid we don't get? But there's nothing to say that that doesn't start to happen in Great Britain. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. In terms of construction hours and deliveries, we will agree those as part of the construction management plan. We have committed in the application to make sure that deliveries and construction takes place during the working day. There won't be any deliveries in the evenings or in the early mornings. And as I say, we will agree that through the planning conditions with the council of the working hours. But I can assure you that outside of normal working hours, there won't be deliveries or any noisy work at all.
Well, I hope my idea of normal working hours is the same as yours.
It'll be in the conditions.
I mean, I think that's a fair point. We want to make sure as a developer, we have a good relationship. We want to make sure what we put in our construction management plan and says about delivery times and kind of vehicles at certain times of the day that we commit to and reduce the impacts on people who live close by. And then the final point, Chair, if I can just deal with that about solar and heat. There was some in the press over the last sort of few months about the degradation of panels due to heat, and that is something that does happen. But above, I believe it was 28 degrees. There is only, for every degree above that, there is a 0.1% decrease in efficiency of the panels. So it is a very, very minor sort of decrease in output of those panels to do with the heat.
You got another question, Councillor?
I can appreciate that, but what I'm also interested in is whether or not the actual hardware, the panels themselves, will stand up to plus 45, possibly 50-degree temperatures. Hopefully we don't have, but who knows about that in 30 years' time?
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, in terms of panels, they have been deployed around the world in particularly hot climates, in deserts, and they are robust. They are designed for by their very nature to accommodate heat. So in terms of more hostile environments in deserts, the UK, whilst we do believe it's going to get warmer, the panels will be fit for purpose and ensure that they're maintained throughout the life of the scheme to maintain their efficiency.
Councillor Harris.
Thank you. I would echo the comments made by my colleague in terms of the badgering of government in terms of legislation on all of our buildings. That's a side issue. I have a question in regards to something that seems to be an increasing issue, and that is that we're talking about a 40-year lifespan. Like all energy productions of any nature, there's always a byproduct or a waste product. In this instance, we're going to have masses of panels. Could you advise the committee what happens to those used panels and what is the means of disposal or repurposing or whatever after the life?
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, obviously 40 years is a long time, and that is the design life of panels, the minimum design life to guarantee the outputs. Clearly, we will agree to a decommissioning plan that ensures that the solar farm is taken away in the right way and the land is restored to its former state. In terms of, there have been a number of studies recently about solar panels, and that 85% of the materials can be recovered and recycled. And that would be our intention. Obviously, EDF, as a large energy company, not just in the UK, but around the world, we want to ensure that we do everything the right way. And through that decommissioning plan, we will detail how we will recycle any of the material that is within the solar farm itself.
Yes, Councillor Bashar.
Thank you, Chair. A very quick question is, where are these solar panels manufactured? hopefully in the UK. If not, why not?
That's a very good question, councillor, that is raised by, is raised a lot. And clearly there are no panel manufacturers in the UK. There are looking to be some set up in Europe, but primarily the panels are manufactured in China and the East.
Anybody? Sorry.
Chair,
Councillor Purcell.
just briefly, I think it's in the paperwork, but just to confirm, given that we're on two important footpaths, network footpaths for our communities, that there are going to be some interpretation panels, because there are important historical aspects of the landscape here, just to confirm that.
You want to say that, Eric?
Sorry, yeah, if that's okay. Yeah, we've obviously, in terms of the footpaths, we're aware of those important footpaths, and we are happy, and we've committed to interpretation panels along the route to ensure that people can understand the landscape further, and obviously the solar farm itself.
Any other members' questions? No.
Thanks, Chair.
I'll just go to the officers who might just want to make a few comments on what they've heard. Thank you.
So during the debate, there's quite a few questions and answers that actually relate to the conditions. So if members wish, I can perhaps help take this forward slightly. So on condition 9 is decommissioning. So the agent has just explained that there would be a recycling strategy. Now, that's not actually covered at the moment in our decommissioning, in the wording of the decommissioning condition, but I don't see any reason why a fourth point to do with recycling of materials couldn't be added. So what I'm going to do is suggest, Chairman, that the actual wording is delegated to officers, but it's basically materials recycling, so that as long as members understand what they're delegating to officers, if you're happy to leave the final wording to us, we will ensure the points are properly covered. So it would be condition 9, decommissioning, and IV, materials recycling. Condition 12's construction management plan. Again, additional wording, HGV delivery hours, construction working hours. I'm mentioning both because they can sometimes be slightly different, and hopefully that would fully cover the points that would be raised. And as you heard, the applicant fully intends to include such matters in their construction management plan. So by adding such words to the condition, it's just ensuring that the points you've raised are fully covered in condition discharges. And then as a final point, there's a landscaping condition. So I referred to at the very start of the meeting, and I referred to the Badgers Gates. Apologies, I'm slightly paraphrasing. You could word the condition to ensure the parcel of land is part of the landscaping scheme, put simply. So effectively, we're not kind of going into the details, because conditions are, the point of conditions is to go into the details, but it's ensuring the parcel of land, and I think we all know, we're all clear what the parcel is. So we'd word the condition such that that parcel of land is part of a landscape strategy that has to be discharged. So as I say, hopefully I'm covering the concepts, but the request is the final detail is delegated to officers. So as long as those points are all captured in the minutes, we will ensure they are captured fully in the final conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
I think the solicitor just wants to come back on a point there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just so this committee is aware, I'm informed that the Constitution requires or stipulates that any wording to be agreed via a condition ought to be done at the meeting, so members are clear what they're actually making a decision on. So how to perhaps take it forward would be either to adjourn where the officers and the applicant perhaps agree and then present it to the committee and see if they're happy with that, or at least the emphasis of the actual condition can be agreed and then delegated to officers.
Okay.
Chairman, on each of the points I've raised, it would, to be honest, the actual wording would be pretty much as I've said. So it is materials recycling, effectively just with, you know, the sort of top and tailing, such as full details of materials recycling shall be submitted to and approved in writing. So the key words are materials recycling, and on condition 12, effectively it just needs to include that it's clear that the details to be included in the construction management plan must include HGV delivery hours and construction working hours. And then on the landscaping, it's effectively the wording would be describing that parcel of land and requiring the landscaping scheme includes that specific parcel of land. Have I covered the board? Lost my thread, was it?
Chair, I think there was also reference to budget gate or details of a budget gate to be provided.
Yes, yes. So I said at the start of the meeting, so I'll just repeat what I verbally said at the start. So the first line of condition 17, hard and soft landscaping, and an additional line to condition 17, the landscape mitigation strategy should also include the details of the badger gates within the deer fencing. Thank you, Chairman.
Members, are you happy with that, or do you want that book, chapter and verse, which will mean just having a 10-minute break while we get that down so you know exactly what you're going on forward on? Councillor Herring?
I really welcome the issue of the badger gates, because I did raise it on the site visit. So whether it can be said to be you have the details of the badger gates, but that's in agreement or on the advice of our environmental department, so that we know, you know, they haven't just put one or two randomly, but that they've had advice as to where the more likely tracts of animals will be and where they should be sited. So just using our own expertise in-house, if we could add that.
Yeah, which is why I'm saying, are you happy with what the officer has said, or do you want it listing so you know exactly what you're voting on?
I'm happy that it's delegated to the officer with that, just with that addendum, if that's okay.
So just
Don't know about anybody
clarify-
else.
Just to clarify, we wouldn't add it to the wording, but we would definitely consult our ecology officer on the discharge of that condition, because it includes an ecology element.
Councillor Harris?
Yeah, I'm broadly happy with the phrasing as described. The point about the decommissioning is important because, again, historically, we create a solution and then we worry about it 40 years down track and then we've got another problem. So I think it's important that we have some clarity around that. I would just add Councillor Russell's point, working hours. I think it would be useful to specify actually what we mean by working hours and put some start and finish times on it, because that has creep quite a lot, actually.
Sorry, Chair, we're just conferring.
Sorry, should I just explain where I think we are? Officers would prefer to do effectively a wording that's clearly requiring the details of the construction working hours. The difficulty with us trying to pinpoint them now is we don't know every detail of the construction. Clearly, it's not there are standard construction working hours, normally sort of 8 till 6:30. We aren't going to be encouraging the applicant to be doing any construction during antisocial hours. As I say, the difficulty, I think, is if we go to the next step now and actually put the hours in the condition, that once we've done that, we're doing it without the opportunity of that direct discussion with the applicant. And even on the biggest construction projects, we normally don't actually, in the detail of the condition, put the precise hours, in part because we don't know if there might be one extreme load that has to be delivered at a particular time or some particular point of detail. So I have to say our preference as officers would be to have a wording that is clear that we have to have the details of the construction working hours, but isn't actually at this stage specifying them.
Right, thank you. So we're happy that what's been said we'll go with. Yes? Agreed? Agreed. Right, thank you. And strange now. We'll now go to the debate. So welcome any member who wishes to address the officers. Councillor Herring.
Well, I just wanted to ask, is there any national guidance about this delicate balance that there is between food production and production of power? Because it seems unfair, really, that at our level, we're being put in the position to decide on really what are major strategic considerations. I don't know what the overall need for food is going to be in the future as opposed to the power, or vice versa, or is guidance given just on the grading of land, and we don't build on anything that's A grade agricultural land. I just wondered whether there was any advice given. Otherwise, I think the presentation and the thought that seems to have gone into this scheme as a solar panel scheme, and given the assurances that we had on the site visit, is quite impressive.
James?
Yeah, I think there is some guidance I can give to help with that. So there are lots of appeals currently being allowed for solar farms on agricultural land. So clearly, in terms of that planning balance, a lot of inspectors are putting significant weight on the climate emergency. There is planning guidance, such as paragraph 158 that I read out at the start, that clearly indicates the government supporting renewable and low carbon development proposals. There is actually also within the National Planning Policy Framework some text that supports protection of high quality agricultural land. So there is that tension, if you wish to call it that. The CPRE speaker did allude to the fact that they'd written a lengthy correspondence and we'd summarised it. They actually referred us to an appeal decision. And that appeal decision, Erica and I have had a look at, and it is a appeal where an inspector did, in the planning balance, decide to put more weighting, as it appears, to the food production. It's an unusual case because statistically, normally it's going the other way. But when we looked at the detail of that appeal, what we noted was that it was referencing a lot of very high quality grade 2 agricultural land. So put simply, that appeal case, the one that the balance went the other way, was very high quality agricultural land, a lot of grade 2. This is grade 3A and grade 3B. So it's more mixed in terms of quality. So what I'd be saying to you as a committee is that means the planning balance, I think, swings further in favour of the renewable and carbon reduction benefits of the proposal. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other member? Councillor Stone.
I think in terms of our need for renewable energy, this is a really, really good scheme, but there is something I'm really worried about. And that is the economics of what is happening to farming. So if the story that we've heard, that 95% effort only gets a 5% return in farming, if that is happening all over the country, then it won't be surprising at all that an awful lot of farmers would rather see solar panels on their farmland. So it's not in our gift to do anything about that. I understand that. But I certainly do think it's an issue that needs to be addressed by the council with our members of parliament, because that is clearly an unsatisfactory state of affairs. We need our food producers to be properly remunerated, and we need our communities to have enough money to be able to buy food.
Councillor Chelmsford.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that I have some experiences which might be useful, both as a farmer's son and as chairman of a parish council which has just had a solar farm constructed. As far as the farming is concerned, the big problem in this country, and you won't like it, is that you don't pay enough for your food. It's that simple. And I realise that's not a popular statement to make, but because of that, farming has become more and more difficult. I work very closely with an organisation called the Farming Community Network, and nationally, we are still losing one farmer a week to suicide. That is the state of farming in this country. So you need to understand that. We produce a lot of our food and we change the ways we do it. The other experience I've had is with the construction of a solar farm. It's nearing final completion. All the panels are in place, they're wiring it up and they're about to connect it to the grid. During the construction, there was a construction management plan which controlled very strictly the movement of HGVs. Very much so in our case, because they had to pass the primary school, so they weren't allowed past the school when the children would be either joining the school or leaving it. They complained about this, of course, the constructors, because it meant that it restricted very much the delivery of stuff which had come from overseas, as you've heard, and they couldn't guarantee the time when the lorry would actually arrive in Yelvertoft. But their solution to that was to comply, but also to apply for a variation in their planning permission to allow an alternative route. But by the time this council got round to considering that, they'd finished anyway. So the other point there is that it sounds terrible if you've never experienced it, that you're going to have HGVs trundling back and forth all day, every day for months. It's not true. It doesn't take very long. And there are actually remarkably few HGV movements during the construction of a solar farm. I just wanted to make those points just to try and level out the concerns that people might have, Chair.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things from our previous planning meeting, I must admit, I got an awful lot out of the visit that happened a week or so ago. And it was very beneficial indeed to see the undulations in the land and so on. What I would actually like to propose is that we accept this application and also we delegate to officers with regards to some of the conditions or additional conditions that have been outlined by our legal advisor.
Sorry, have we a second for that? Councillor Chandler, would you like to say anything?
Nothing to add, Chairman. I was going to propose it myself, but I thought I'd wait and see what else might be said.
Has anyone else got anything to say before we move to the vote? Could we move to the vote, please? Those for to accept officers' recommendations to approve. Nine? Yeah, unanimous without going against and absent. Right, thank you. So as there is no other business, I now declare the meeting closed at, I think it's 3:25. Thank you, everybody, for coming.